Okay, how is the sound? I think I'm live right now. Oh, sure. Faceless Potato, Lucas Peterson, Ace McLeod, Porto Complex. Who else is here? Go ahead and share this stream. This channel is gonna stay. I'm not deliberately trying to provoke another 3 strikes in one video, or 4 sometimes. I can get a home run. I can get my account banned with one live stream. And I called it. We all called it. If you didn't call it, you weren't paying attention. YouTube is CNN. Not only is YouTube CNN, but it always has been. They just let us run amok for a little while. That way they could see who's who knows what are their weak spots, how can they cover it up, and how complicit will the general public be in overt censorship. So like, let's bring 1984. See what happens. Well, it happened, and nobody gave a single fuck. Well, at least that's what it would seem if you just looked at the media, but we'll see. We'll see if there's a blowback. I mean, they started censoring people back in Vegas, and I'm talking about the shooting in Vegas, October 1st, the fake shooting. I talked about that on a live stream. 20 minutes in, they censored me. And none of the usual loud voices in favor of free speech, the ones who are always talking about free speech on principle, the ones who are always quick to say, whenever they're confronting their opposition, they'll say, well, I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. No one is living up to that principle, especially not those who cited it the most. Where's Mike Cernovich? Where's Styx Hexenhammer? Or even Jones, for that matter. Alex Jones is playing victim because he got censored, but I don't see him speaking on behalf of anybody else. These little channels, or even why. And the reason we're being censored now, I mean, they're using the crisis actor thing as an excuse, but I've been going through some of these headlines and they are brazen. I mean, they're just like, they know that no one's going to stop them. Okay, listen to this headline. YouTube says it's going after conspiracy videos, CBS News. And what they're doing, they're trying to crack down. And they're going to start displaying Wikipedia articles next to conspiracy theory videos. So I think we need to get it really clear right now. What does it mean when you say conspiracy theory? What is a conspiracy theory? Anyone? A conspiracy theory is what the mainstream media calls it when you don't agree with them, when you don't believe them. And they're finding non-believers to be very problematic. You are a non-believer if you don't believe all their stories. And when I say all, I mean all. And I think the issue we're running into, the real predicament here, is the fact that the state-controlled media, the MSM, and even the alternative media, which is not alternative, well, it's an alternative to reality, like the mainstream media, but they're all working together. And this, the media, we call it today, the mainstream media is in fact the state church. It's the state church. And we're saying we don't trust your priesthood anymore. YouTube is post-truth, right? We knew this. Well, Wikipedia is now post-truth. And I was thinking about this last night, about journalism, about science, about reporting facts, describing reality, how we determine what is and what isn't a fact, and also falsifiability. You know, one of the staples of, you know, the scientific method, one of the things that makes it science is that a new piece of information can change the theory. And the problem we're dealing with is media has now been granted some type of blanket approval by the government to be treated as unfalsifiable. In other words, if something is reported and you contradict it, you're trying to falsify the story. And even if you have facts that would contradict it, they don't take those into account. So what does that make it? It makes it dogma. And so this is an introduction that I'm working on right now for the video upcoming probably in the next week called 200 Proofs Your Reality is Fake as Fuck. Actually, the main title is Auto Hoaxed. 200 Proofs Your Reality is Fake as Fuck. And working on it up to 117. I had some duplicates. I'm adding some more. Basically, it's going to consist of 200 blurbs really, really basic stuff, just pointing out things that 5 minutes, just a simple cursory investigation will get someone right to the questions that are being raised. And here's the thing. That's all we're doing. We're not conspiracy theorists. We're researchers. And if anything, all we're doing is we're asking questions and we're questioning the wrong thing. So you can impugn the motivations of, anybody on any topic except for the media. It's like the media is suddenly sacrosanct. They're sacred. You can't criticize what they're saying. It's like, oh, you don't believe CNN? Well, we're going to have an article posted on a video next to yours to display people to what we say is the truth. And I'm saying that if YouTube is post-truth, then Wikipedia is post-truth. If they're now using Wikipedia to back up whatever official storyline that they're defending at that point. And this is a big deal. I don't know how it's going to go over. I don't know if the level of apathy is there or if we're just universally despised. And remember, this is what they do. They marginalize unpopular groups and attack them as a trial run. And if nobody defends that group, they move on to the next group and the next group. So nobody really cared that auto hoaxers were getting banned. Yeah, you can live mirror, do whatever you like. Nobody gave a damn when they saw that auto hoaxers, or rather people who don't believe anything the news says, this radical new skepticism that has really become mainstream flat earth. It used to be if you were in flat earth, you kind of confined to that. And if you saw a shooting, you waited until the mourners had time to mourn and they put up their shrines and they made their pitches to their congressmen over gun control before you said anything. Just in case you're wrong, you didn't want to look like a jerk. In other words, you were cowed by political correctness. We all were to some degree, where we gave them the benefit of the doubt. Well, maybe those are real people. Let me look closely at the footage. Let's see if the blood looks real. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, and this has been the case since Vegas, but even far more pronounced with this Florida hoax, is that people are preemptively calling it. I've had people say, hey, I'm pre-auto hoaxing 2018. If there's a shooting, I'm going to assume it's fake. It's like, yes, finally. There's never a time where you should ever give the benefit of the doubt to a pathological liar or somebody representing an institution which lies pathologically, where lying is an intrinsic part of its standard operating procedure, which is why you have to put limits on how much you trust. Would you trust a priest 100% on every issue? Just because he's closer to God than you, does it mean he has valid tax advice or anything? No. We have to be able to recognize that we're dealing with fallible men, fallible institutions. And the utopians, they're selling us on the space program today, but the utopians have always been here. They're always the ones behind big government programs, selling people on utopias. Communism would be a utopian endeavor. And utopians, they always do the same thing. They pitch you on something that's unattainable if you just give them the power because they believe in the perfectibility of man. That's one of the big lies. The lie is that if you just give the right people the levers of power, everything will be okay. Everything will be fair. Everything will be equal. And that's not the case. You give the levers of power to a concentrated minority, a small group, what you have is a cartel, which then fights to protect its own interests and eventually become a monopoly. And right now, the media, with the government's help, has had a monopoly on our interpretations of reality. You can be forgiven for being wrong about so much, considering we had such bad info and nothing outside of that information. It was Mark Twain who said, if you read the news, you're misinformed. If you don't read the news, you're uninformed. Well, what's worse? Considering that what they inform you with is not relevant to your interest anyway. It's not local. The idea of having centralized news, just having their message propagated by repeaters all across the plane, the furthest distance, that is ridiculous. That's not a model for informing anybody. That's a model for conforming everybody. And that's the whole purpose, conforming you. And so they have an issue with you not believing in their stories. And it's such a big issue for them that they cannot tolerate their story and your story, even in close proximity as being on the same website. So they're like, well, we have our interpretation of what happened. We've already solved the crime. In fact, I mean, come on. Nicholas Cruz Cross, it is a crusade. Cross was an intentional inference. The odd crosses on their head, Ash Wednesday. We all know this thing. We understand that the guy's not a patsy, that he's not a killer. We know he's an actor, that David Hogg and Nick Cruz behind the scenes are friends. It's like World Wrestling Federation. We're talking about scripted propaganda films that have been conflated and confused with reality on purpose. They've been using their monopoly over the means of perception in order to conform us all to one specific view. And all we're doing is saying, we don't believe you. This is a reformation. This conversation, this chat room, these chats, these interactions, these networks outside of their network, this is the movable type press of our time. And right now they're nakedly going around censoring, and I'm saying, who cares? You know, who really cares? As long as we all know that YouTube is now post-truth, and anybody still taking their news off mainstream, even if it's just to criticize it or give an alternate interpretation, all you're doing is you're reading off of their green screen. You're participating in their mediated reality. And that's what this is ultimately about. The mediated versus the post-mediated. And the post-mediated are growing in number and in influence, and they have a big problem with it. Never has the green screen separating mediated from post-mediated been so visible and obvious. So this green screen reality has been flaunting its fakery before us for so long, terrifying people, dividing us. And they're so out in the open because they probably, maybe it's hubris, but they didn't think we would ever put the pieces together. And what they've been doing is faking and falsifying reality. And we're not talking about media malfeasance. We're talking about propaganda. Yeah, but something more than that. We're talking about a religion. In a way, you could call this a secret government. All the paranoid conspiracy theorists and researchers have all been warning you about this. The one world order, the one world religion. Well, the one world order is a theocracy. There is no separation of church and state. The one world order, though, and yes, it is your secret government, and it is, here's the good news, here's the bad news. The bad news is it's already been instituted. And it is the one world religion. And the good news is it was here before we were born. So like we didn't have anything to do with it. And it was already here. So it's not like you have to worry about something already coming. So the worst has already happened. Now it's just a matter of breaking away from its pull or its clutches. But you know, when it comes down to it, it's volitional. It's volitional. Nobody tells you're not forced to go to church. You're not forced to believe any of this stuff. You don't, you know, if you don't feel bad about rejecting somebody else's holy book, don't feel bad about directly contradicting what the mainstream media says, because that is the Bible of the day. That is the Bible of the day. It's whatever they tell you through their screens, and it's not confined to the news media. It's immersed. It's an immersive experience. When you get into the mediated reality, it's so immersive that you get messages across the boundary separating what should be a boundary, separating news and entertainment and celebrity and Hollywood and academia. You have government, academia, media, entertainment conflated with these fake events with fake people, i.e. crisis actors. So you hire people to fake and fabricate events, and then the news reports them, and because the media has this unfalsifiability, you know, the media is basically canon law. If the media reports something and the government says something, like when Donald Trump shed a tear, crisis actor in chief Donald Trump said, well, really bad tragedy, whatever happened there. Sorry, my heart goes out to you. Let me pray for you, blah, blah, blah. When he did that, he basically said, what the media reported is real. He gave that story his official stamp of approval, and it became real. King Trump decided that was real. So good luck. Good luck trying to get them to take that back, to pull that story. They're not going to. Like I said, the problem we're dealing with is that the media is unfalsifiable. It's religion. The media is the state church. The media is the state church. The space program is its heaven that it sells you on. We've worked this out. It has its eschatology. They've taken the old controlled system, mind control system of Roman polytheism, state church, sun worship, and they just dressed it up with science fiction, repackaged it, gave their priests new uniforms, gave them ties, gave them new titles. It's not hard to figure out, but like I said, we were born into it. It was already here. So forget what you were told and go with what you can know, not with what you think you know. Some of what we've been told to accept as knowable isn't knowable, which is another thing. We have Stephen Hawking just being, I don't know, whatever you want to call that situation, this mouthpiece for envirostatism, this one world religion. He was just another one of their priests, another oracle. But many of the claims that they make, things they claim to know, they can't know. They can't tell you if it's going to snow next week without, giving themselves a great margin of error. And yet they can tell you with utter certainty that if you don't recycle and crush those cans and reduce your carbon footprint, the world's going to overheat in 50 years and turn into a ball of fire. Stephen Hawking words, not mine. I didn't say it's going to turn into a ball of fire when we overpopulate because of our inherently destructive nature. You see, the human race, we're just inveterate nest fowlers, and we destroy everything we touch. It's like the opposite of Midas's touch. And therefore, we need the space program, and we need the government, and we need the scientists to save us. That's the whole dynamic they set up. So the priesthood of the one world religion, which is heliocentrism. So all you atheists out there, if you believe you're on a spinning ball going around the sun, you're wrong. You are a heliocentrist. And you go around the sun, or so you think, so you believe, but you don't know because you can't know. But heliocentrism masquerades as secular humanism. And it makes bold and credible claims in the name of its God, which it calls gravity. And the doctrines of this religion will be found in the corrupted sciences, such as the claims of the environmentalists. And like priests in general, all of their solutions come at a price. And so today, the wage of sin is increased governmental regulation and higher taxes. Only today, sin is called pollution, and it's your carbon footprint, not your dirty soul, that you must atone for. And like the terrifying threats of hell, possessing demons, eternal torment, the modern threat of global warming, overpopulation, worldwide AIDS, terrorist attacks, alien invasion, school shootings, these are all superstitions, scary stories used in this protracted psychological warfare operation waged against you and all those born under the one world religion. So the mediated reality, which is the one that you have been born into, indoctrinated into, the one you cannot escape until you voluntarily exit its influences, and it's going to be easier to do so. It was hard when you're alone, when you're told, if you don't agree with this story, you ought to be locked up in a padded cell. I've been told that thousands of times. There are people who think I should be chained up, locked up, buried in a hole in the ground because of my thoughts. And these sick fucks have too much power and always have. And we are in the process of, at this time, trying to take that power away from them. And this is going to get easier because as more of us exit media completely, exit their mediated reality, we can communicate with one another and completely go outside of their filtering. That's what has to happen. That's why they want to marginalize you. They don't want 2 of you talking or 3 of you talking or 10 of you talking. They don't want 20 of us sitting in a chat room listening to these words. They absolutely do not. And so the more of us that get together, the less we rely on their interpretations. You know how nice it is to be in a room full of people, online or whatever, when a chat room and some event breaks out and everyone there is like, uh-oh, let's examine this critically, instead of everybody shut your mouth and don't let the auto hoaxers say anything because they're going to make flat earthers look bad. Auto hoaxers are just here to destroy the truth movement. No, auto hoaxers are the truth movement. And if you're not auto hoaxing, you're not paying attention. And you're post-truth because you're on the wrong side of the green screen. And right now we're calling out anybody posturing as a truth channel. Just right now, if you're posturing as a truth channel and you think kids died in Florida, that's your opinion, that's your belief. But if you're passing that belief off as fact, you are reading off of Anderson Cooper's green screen. Just so you know. And that means that you're post-truth, and it also means that you're essentially working for them. Good for you. Serve the beast because you're too afraid to contradict it. I mean, that's what they want. They want you to be afraid of the mob. And that's where the fear comes in. They can get you to fear the mob and the mob's reaction when you offend it. So I'm saying stop fearing the mob. We're the mob. We are the media. There's more of us than them. There is more. Look, there are more of us than them. They're so far outnumbered. That's why they're scared shitless. That's why they're overreacting. So the mediated reality is filled with superstitions, miracles, oracles, doomsayers, and high priests who occupy the heavens in their ISS with their ever-watchful satellites. They have created this simulated reality for the masses. It's a faith-based reality, not a knowledge-based one. And so until you can be honest enough with yourself to admit that you don't really know to be true a lot of what you accept to be true. For example, if you think there's a Tesla Roadster flying to Mars, I would argue that your knowledge is not even close to firsthand or secondhand. It's basically you're believing it because you trust in the sources of information. And who are those sources? They're not good enough for me. They're not good enough for me. And right now they're working overtime to try to correct those of us who don't trust them. They're calling us essentially non-believers. Conspiracy theorist is a new word for non-believer because you are a non-believer in the state religion, which is the media. And so finally, my last point here is we have to recognize this. The scientific method in all the sciences has been distorted by scientism, by dogma. When a belief or a theory is settled, when it doesn't allow no new information, it's dogma. It's not science. So truth in journalism and reporting has been replaced by advocacy journalism, at best, propaganda at worst. And worse than that, just straight up psychological warfare. So here is the big secret. This is the take home for today. The government and the media are one, and the media is the state church. And the government-controlled news media outlets are treated as though they are unfalsifiable, and they're considered to be such by the government. So if you're disagreeing with the media and they're calling you a conspiracy theorist, it's because you're committing blasphemy. So at this point, we are, as a group, this is the new face of the truth movement. We're the ones who are recognizing that the media is the state church. And the best thing that we can do is to continue to collaborate, to work, and to tear down their green screen day after day. That green screen is the Berlin Wall of our time. And it is separating the overly mediated worshipers of the state church, government as religion, they don't even know it, from those of us who are living in reality. We had a media exodus. We live in the real world. They live in the fake world. And the defenders of the fake world, they have lost the moral and intellectual high ground. Anybody defending the fakery to you, let them know, hey, I don't support pointing guns at kids' heads to make them believe in your boogeyman. Look, you wouldn't tolerate a church if they had adults dressed up like devils pointing pitchforks at babies, screaming at them about the torments of hell. Well, now you have police with guns in classrooms routing kids out and even hyper-realistic shooter drills. That's almost as crazy as a hyper-realistic fire drill. Like, it needs to stop, and it won't stop until those of us who have logic and reason dispel, very potent word here, dispel all their superstitions and myths and their weaponized, it's weaponized superstition. It's psychological warfare. And we're living in truth. They're living in this fantasy. And obviously they're threatened by us. They have the SPLC trying to regulate YouTube. So I think it's progress. YouTube is dead. Long live free speech. Thanks for joining me.